How did a country that was one of Asia's poorest nations, somehow, beat Japan? Well, let's draw from their economic history for a start. After the Korean War in the 1950s, South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world. Ravaged by war and colonial exploitation, the nation lacked the natural resources and industrial base required for significant economic growth. Japan, in contrast, was experiencing a rapid post-war recovery. The United States had poured billions of dollars into Japan to rebuild its economy as a buffer against communism, resulting in Japan becoming one of the most advanced economies by the 1970s. South Korea's initial post-war strategy revolved around heavy reliance on foreign aid, particularly from the United States. However, by the 1960s, South Korea began to adopt a more aggressive, state-led approach to economic development under the authoritarian regime of Park Chung-hee. His government embarked on a strategy of export-led industrialization, focusing on building key industries such as steel, shipbuilding, and electronics. While Japan already had a well-established industrial base by this time, South Korea's transformation was just beginning. Japan became the model for other Asian nations seeking to develop their economies, with countries like Taiwan, Hong Kong, and South Korea looking to replicate its success. The key difference was that Japan's economic growth was more organic, built over time with a significant pre-war industrial base, while South Korea's rise was more state-directed and accelerated. A pivotal aspect of South Korea's rapid rise was the role of the chaebols, large, family-owned conglomerates that dominated the nation's economy. These conglomerates, including Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK Group, became engines of growth for South Korea. The government provided extensive support to these firms through favorable policies, easy access to capital, and subsidies, ensuring that they became globally competitive. Samsung, now the world's largest producer of smartphones and memory chips, started out in 1938 as a small trading company dealing in dried fish and noodles. By the 1960s, it had shifted its focus to electronics and semiconductors. Under Lee Kun-hee, the son of Samsung's founder, the company invested heavily in research and development, which allowed it to innovate faster than its Japanese counterparts like Sony and Panasonic. The chaebol structure played a key role in South Korea's ability to rapidly industrialize. Unlike Japan's keiretsu system, where companies were linked through cross-shareholding and maintained a decentralized structure, chaebols were tightly controlled by founding families. This allowed them to be more agile in responding to global market trends, making faster decisions on investments and technological innovation. During the 1990s and early 2000s, Japan's large conglomerates, such as Sony and Panasonic, began to falter under the weight of bureaucratic inefficiencies and a failure to innovate in a rapidly changing technology landscape. Meanwhile, South Korea's chaebols, particularly Samsung, continued to grow stronger, diversifying into emerging industries like smartphones, semiconductors, and consumer electronics. Samsung overtook Sony in consumer electronics by the late 2000s, and Hyundai surpassed Japanese car makers like Nissan and Mitsubishi in global markets. This growth was not without its challenges. Chaebols faced criticism for corruption, insider dealing, and an excessive concentration of economic power. However, their ability to dominate key industries, automobiles, electronics, and shipbuilding positioned South Korea as a leading global exporter, with chaebols producing most of the country's exports. By 2017, South Korea ranked 5th globally in terms of export volume and maintained a trade surplus larger than Japan's, which had slipped behind. One of the key reasons South Korea was able to overtake Japan economically lies in its capacity for innovation and its aggressive push into high-tech industries. Japan, once the global leader in consumer electronics and manufacturing, struggled to maintain its edge in the face of changing global markets and a declining domestic economy. South Korea, in contrast, invested heavily in research and development and focused on sectors such as semiconductors, 5G technology, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. The rise of South Korea's semiconductor industry is a particularly striking example of this shift. Semiconductors are the backbone of modern electronics, powering everything from smartphones to automobiles. Samsung and SK Hynix have become the two largest manufacturers of memory chips in the world, outpacing Japanese firms such as Toshiba and NEC, which once dominated the industry in the 1980s. Samsung's commitment to innovation can be traced back to the late 1990s when the company made a strategic decision to invest in semiconductor technology. This move paid off in the 2000s when demand for memory chips surged due to the growing popularity of personal computers, smartphones, and cloud computing. Japan, which had dominated the semiconductor industry in the 1980s, failed to keep up with this technological shift and eventually lost its lead to South Korea. In addition to semiconductors, South Korea has also outpaced Japan in other high-tech sectors such as telecommunications. South Korea was one of the first countries to roll out a nationwide 5G network, giving it a significant advantage in developing next-generation technologies. This early adoption has allowed South Korean companies to stay ahead. Japan, on the other hand, has been slower to innovate in these areas. While it still maintains a strong presence in traditional industries such as automotive manufacturing, Japan has struggled to adapt to the rapid pace of change in the technology sector. This failure to innovate has contributed to Japan's economic stagnation, while South Korea has continued to grow. There are several key metrics that already show how South Korea surpassed Japan. South Korea's GDP per capita, when adjusted for purchasing power parity, has surpassed Japan's in recent years. While Japan's economy remains larger overall, South Korea's per capita income is higher, reflecting a higher standard of living for its citizens. This is a significant milestone, considering that South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world just a few decades ago. Innovation and technology, as often repeated in this video, is also a crucial part. South Korea has become one of the most innovative countries in the world, ranking at the top of the Bloomberg Innovation Index multiple times in recent years. Japan, while still a global leader in patents, has seen its position in the innovation ranking slip. Japan's economy has also become more inward-looking in recent years, while South Korea has continued to expand its trade relationships, particularly with China and Southeast Asia. Additionally, South Korea has made significant investments in education, which has contributed to a more skilled workforce. In Japan, stagnating wages and rising inequality have eroded living standards for many citizens. While Japan once boasted one of the highest standards of living in the world, it has struggled to maintain that position in recent years. South Korea, on the other hand, has seen rapid improvements in living standards, particularly in urban areas like Seoul, where the quality of infrastructure, healthcare, and education rivals that of any major city in the world. South Korea's rise above Japan in terms of economic growth, living standards, and technological innovation is a remarkable achievement. Once a war-torn country reliant on foreign aid, South Korea is now a global economic powerhouse, driven by its innovative chaebols, cutting-edge technology, and strategic investment in high-growth sectors. While Japan still remains a significant global player, its stagnation in key areas has allowed South Korea to pull ahead. Thanks for watching.